Savvy Business Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with our host, Christina Nichman.
Our guest today is entrepreneur, CEO, and equality innovator Sarah Collins, best known as the creator of the Wonderbag. Over the past 10 years, 1.5 million Wonderbags have been activated in the Western and majority world. Find out more about Sarah and the Wonderbag at thewonderbagshop.com. Hi, Sarah. Welcome to Savvy Business Radio. How are you this morning, or in your case, this evening in South Africa?
I'm great, Christina, and thank you so much for having me. It's wonderful to be with you, as you say, in the evening, but I know it's morning for you.
Absolutely. Well, it's such a pleasure to have you here. You're doing wonderful work in the world. You've created a product that actually has been used for quite some time in Africa and South Africa, and that is the Wonderbag. And you're bringing it to folks, having them realize that there's a different way that they could have delicious meals without using energy and be good to the environment, and also give back to humans across the world who are bringing this beautiful product to people. Share with the audience a little bit about what brought you to creating the Wonderbag and your business.
So, to begin with, maybe I'll just describe what a Wonderbag is, so that can set the backdrop of the conversation. So what it is, it actually looks from a visual perspective like a big pumpkin, if you want to call it that. And I often describe it as a jacket for a pot. So you bring your food to the boil, either on a fire or on a cooker, for a few minutes, depending on what you're cooking. If you're cooking rice, it's just for 2 minutes or 3 minutes, and meat is obviously much longer, 15 to 20 minutes. You take the pot off the stove or fire with the lid on it. You place it in the bag, you put the lid of the bag, and you pull it tight, and it continues to cook for up to 8 to 12 hours. So it's really a portable, non-electric, slow cooker. And I developed this. My background really is I was born in apartheid South Africa, which I always think is important to mention, because the backdrop of where I come from and how I grew up has really shaped the course of my life. So I suppose if you wanted to summarize what I've been all my life, as a freedom fighter and an activist. And, you know, from a very young age, not only was there racial discrimination, but there was also massive discrimination between men and women. So from a very early age, I started to fight my patch. And I've spent the rest of my life thus far really working in the social entrepreneur space, empowering women in marginalized communities across the world, and in different ways. And in 2008, against the incredible statistics that half of humanity, almost 3 billion people, still eat off an open fire every single day. And the biggest killer in the world is indoor air pollution related diseases. Almost 5 million people die every year, and half of those are children under the age of 5. Now, in Africa, these women are, the people cooking over these fires are predominantly women and grandmothers who are the fiber of the home. They are the matriarchs, the people that keep the home together. But they spend so much time and strength and resources keeping fires going that they're unable to do anything else. So in my 30 years of working in economic empowerment, I realized that unless we addressed a different way of cooking, not only from a time perspective, and then a resource perspective, but also from a health. And the fact is, we're running out of firewood across the world. Deforestation in Africa is at 70% rate now. So I remembered my grandmother, who used to cook with two cushions in a box. And so that is known as heat retention cooking. So I did not invent heat retention cooking. It's been done for centuries. But what I did was I invented the bag, which I brought this age-old cooking technology into the 21st century. So that was the premise of which I started my business in 2008. And I really was about bringing, my goal was to bring an alternative cooking method to women, and particularly grandmothers, in homes in my native country, South Africa, but across our continent. And what I never expected was that it would be sold in the US, the UK, and 52 countries around the world. So it is a global solution for busy moms, for potluck, for so many applications in the US, but in homes around the world. And that's what is so exciting about this journey, is it's taken me on a trajectory that I never dreamt possible.
Wow, this is amazing, Sarah. And this, I had no idea how dangerous it would be for people cooking. That one of the health issues is cooking in the house and whatever. And interestingly enough, my grandma was the main cook in my house, and she burnt a lot of our meals. She would be so busy trying to keep us kids in order that she'd end up burning our dinners often. And I had more than one occasion having to have the fire department come take our dinner off fire. So we definitely could have used the slow cooker, where my grandma's attention could have been on us children and not on worrying about the fire and the stove. So I love that you've brought this not only to South Africa, but the entire world. What has been some of the challenges getting up and going? Did you get resistance from people feeling like, well, a woman can't do this, or this is not going to work? What was some of the resistance you might have come across?
Well, Christina, I mean, do you think somebody would say to me, wow, a woman can do this. You're going to conquer the world and change it. I wish that for my children, and the children I've just cooked popcorn for in a Wonderbag, and friends reading them a story. That's what I wish for them, is that's what people are going to say to them, but it certainly wasn't said to me. I mean, I was told, my brother said he thought I should go into a lunatic asylum if I thought a bag was going to change the way women cook around the world. People just, I got so much resistance, and I think that's, as businesswomen, and I'm sure you can relate to this, is that, you know, everybody looks at the negative side of things, and everybody was like, oh, people will copy you, this will just be a fad, you know um and a lot of tapping on the head saying, oh, how sweet, good idea, you do such nice things, Sarah, keep it up, jolly good, that kind of thing. But nobody took me seriously, and I think that was really the most frustrating thing. And I think the two biggest challenges for me have been people, people taking me seriously and taking social enterprise seriously. And a lot of people kind of see it as a nice to tuck me under their arm, but and to say we do support the Wonderbag, but not actually supporting it in a broad way, because I think people are still skeptical about doing good, being good for their own businesses, if you understand what I mean. So,
Yes.
in other words, if you are a business and you're a future leader with a vision for the future, you cannot think that you can continue on the trajectory of just financial success. You have to look at the environmental impact, as well as the social and the global challenges that are facing us. And if you don't look at those things, you certainly don't deserve to be a leader of the future. And so, in the beginning, I wasn't taken seriously, but being the person I am, and coming from, from tough beginnings of not being heard, I was determined that I would be. So to get started was difficult, but then once I really got my teeth into it and got people to believe in me, I've been very fortunate on this journey to have had great mentors, people like Jane Goodall and the
Mm.
global CEO of Unilever, Paul Pullman, and Ariana Huffington. A lot of people have really kind of taken me to heart and have really understood the impact. They've used the Wonderbag. Kathy Calvin from the UN Foundation. There's so many amazing
Mm-hmm.
leaders who have really stood by me and said to me, "You can do this, Sarah. You have the tenacity and the bravery to fight and to change the way people see social entrepreneurship." And it's been a lot of trial and error. I mean, there've been a lot of days when I've wanted to give up, but I think
Mm.
I am completely committed to changing this world, and not having my children and my nieces and nephews growing up in the world that I did. And I think that in the past 2 years, certainly, um,
Mm.
without mentioning names, that the US has seen a fundamental need to change the way we operate in this world. We cannot wait for governments to do things for us. We
Yeah.
actually have to take responsibility. And so I think that also has really
Mm-hmm.
strengthened my endeavors in terms of creating global citizenship, global connections, and global businesses that support one another.
Yeah.
And as our governments become less reliant and less supportive of marginalized communities, the more
Mm-hmm.
important it is for people like you and I to stand up and say, hey, there is a different way. So, I mean,
Yeah.
I think that the challenge has been to break through those barriers. And
Mm-hmm.
then secondly, the personal challenge, I've had some really big personal challenges in this is a self-belief. Am I really good
Mm.
enough? So, imposter syndrome has played a massive part in
Mm.
my 10-year journey where I've stood on the stage at Davos and looked around me and thought, "Oh, I'm sure this is all a mistake. Have I
Mm.
made this up? And I actually had to go to therapy because I honestly thought I was living a lie. And
Yeah.
the therapist actually showed me, she looked at photographs of me standing with Ban Ki-moon and this person and that person. She said,
Mm-hmm.
"Who's that in the picture?" And I'm like, "Yeah, but it doesn't feel right." So, and when I started to speak to other women about it and to understand that actually imposter syndrome is
Affects women more.
terrifyingly, it is so, yeah, it is a real issue amongst
Mm-hmm.
women in business. And I think that, we don't speak about these things. And so as I enter into the next decade of my career, or not career, I don't have such a thing. I don't like that word. Wonderbag is 10 years old,
Yeah.
and I feel that I really now can speak my truth. And as
Yeah.
I move forward into the next 10 years, I feel one of the things is to break these stigmas and speak out about it. Speak out about how tough it is to have hormonal imbalances in the middle of the month
Mm.
and want to kill everybody. I mean, that's okay, It's part of being a businesswoman. It's part of who we are. And that doesn't
Yeah.
make us less successful than men. It just means maybe we have to have a day where we don't see anybody. You know what I'm saying? It's
Yeah.
like, it's okay. I have 90 days in my office where people are allowed to not come to work as long as they do what
Yeah.
they need to do. It's okay, and I
Yeah.
think that's important. So in trusting myself and following my gut has been a challenge for me because I've thought that people with PhDs and had fancy accents and
Yeah.
came out of large corporations knew better than I did, a farm girl from
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah. Well, Sarah, this is amazing. I like that you bring this up because the world is very different today, very modern, very fast. And, some people I've talked to said they want to rely on their government to take responsibility for them and the environment. And I think it was a journalist a couple of years back, maybe 5, 6 years actually, who said to me, we're in the point of time in history where it's not feasible for us to wait for some grand leader to come and fix our problems. It really is going to take a global consciousness of us all coming together and doing our part and taking responsibility and being part of, this global change, where we, do better for the environment, mankind, and everyone on the planet, all the animals, all the creatures. But I have something else to ask, because for me as a business owner, what I've come across is one of the big teardowns of women business owners. Oddly, I found for myself has been other women business owners and other women, which I found actually threw me for a loop. I didn't expect that some of the ones to tear me down the most wouldn't be actually men, but other women. Have you experienced that, and why do you think that is?
Christina, it's a very interesting question, that because I hear that a lot, and I hear
Mm-hmm.
it from men who say, "Oh, well, it's other women who take down other women." I hear it from women.
Yeah.
I hear that it's other women that have been their biggest challenges
Mm-hmm.
and tear them down. I can honestly say that's not my experience.
Awesome.
I I have heard it. I have been asked it many times. I have thought about it really hard. I don't say it's men. I don't,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not my experience. And it may be that I don't. I don't know why I haven't experienced it, but I haven't. And I experience it on both sides of it. So I don't think there are more women than more men.
Mm.
I think that people challenge who I am and what I'm doing, but I think
Yeah.
maybe because I don't, I hear people saying, women dress for other women. I mean, I don't. I don't dress for anybody. I dress because I need to put clothes on in the morning. I don't dress, and I don't. Maybe I don't threaten other women because I don't plan their spaces. I don't know. I
Oh.
kind of am a loner, and I'm surrounded by extremely close women friends. Um,
Mm.
I've certainly had my fair share of challenges, colleagues challenges, and I think
Mm.
that's one thing as a business owner that I can honestly say is that women, we can be more emotional and soft in our approach to hiring people and then feel sorry for having to get rid of them. And I think that that's something we need to toughen the fuck up with, is that actually it
Yeah.
is, you know, no good deed went unpunished. And, I have done too many good deeds for the wrong reasons. And so that's something that I really have to work on, is like,
Hmm.
get real, get with the program, and this is the program, and that's what it is.
Hmm.
But so I think our soft side sometimes do kind of lead us
Detriment.
to
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, and because I also think that there's an undermining of our own gut instinct,
Oh, yeah.
we think, well, maybe we are wrong, maybe give them a second chance, whilst somebody else may not do that. So I do think that, but Christine, I'm trying to, as I'm speaking, answer your question differently, but it's a cutthroat world out there. So I
Yeah.
can't say that I've been chopped down by women. No, I mean,
That's
I
good.
found that we need more woman role models. I definitely think that. I would love to see more inspirational people telling their stories who are in business and not
Mm.
just the obvious ones. I'm on a big mission to find amazing women who are in the shadows doing incredible things and bring their stories out, just like you doing.
Mhm.
Because I think that I speak at a lot of universities at MBA, graduate programs across the US and Europe, and what I find so much is that these young people want to crawl under my skin. They want to know how I think. They want to know how I operate. It's unbelievable because these they're craving to
Hmm.
understand how to do it. They want to do things differently. So I don't think enough of us are actually telling our stories and getting out there and being role models to future generations. And I think that that's important because I've often said I wish there was something I could follow. Um, and I've there's been and I've had to forge my own path, and I think that most new business owners and people who are going into new spaces and new territories and challenging the status quo and creating new business models, it is a lot about it is a lot about
Hmm.
frontier building and being
Yeah.
pioneers. But
Well,
I would have liked to have had more people that kind of were able to guide me through that
yeah.
process.
Well, I love that you mentioned going to colleges and that the young want to sink into the wisdom that you have. I work a lot with businesses. When I'm not doing this, I'm a consultant for businesses and helping them with their accounting. And one thing I noticed is the youngest population joining the workforce, the millennials, have this deep desire to be socially responsible, but
Mm.
add value where I'm just not coming to work and being a number and I get to just, one day retire and then get this pension or whatever it is. They're like, I want to make a difference today and not just wait to live when I'm 65 or 70. And so I see they're the most disenchanted group of workers. And I think as business owners would do well to understand how can we use their talents and gifts in a way, but allow them to add value to the world and really work together with seeing them as human beings that could really add value to the businesses, not just someone who's coming just to collect a paycheck or just a worker bee. Stay tuned after these messages from our sponsor, AdRoll.
I come downstairs and I overhear my mum and dad talking in our native Farsi that, potentially we might lose our last shop, and we've always had stores growing up. I guess I was just in my own little bubble enjoying my job in music, and I didn't really realize that potentially our house was on the line. We both knew something had to change. I genuinely firmly believed in the digital process, in getting our garments seen online. I knew we needed help, and I knew we needed a platform to help get our content seen and our message heard. The first campaign that we engaged with AdRoll returned 27 times the ROI. I can turn back and say to Dad, look what we've accomplished.
To learn more about how Nav Salimian turned his family business into a global retail brand, visit adroll.com/savvy. That's ADROLL.com/savvy.
Well, it's so wonderful to hear you say that because it completely confirms my experience, and that's why, one of the things I'm most proudest of is the relationships and partnerships that I've built with global corporations, and where I have taken the time. I mean, I didn't understand corporate culture at all. I don't understand it. I never have been in it. I mean, it was totally the most foreign thing for me alive was to go to work and get a paycheck at the end of the month. I just didn't understand it. And so I took the time to kind of integrate myself for 6 months into all my largest partnerships, so Pfizer, Unilever, and actually get offices in a desk in their head offices, whether it was London or New York, and spend time understanding the corporate culture and then finding out what would make a difference to them, to the people that work there, and then align that with the global strategies. And I've had the most extraordinary letters from people at Pfizer saying, the year I worked with you and the projects that we did with you in Africa have been the highlight of my 35-year career at Pfizer. And and I think we can do more of that. And I think that the world is crying out for able-bodied young people who have the knowledge and the skill sets to support culturally relevant social enterprises in the developing world. And I mean, I love working with magical talent from global corporations, and then them working with us, because we learn so much and they learn so much, and the cross culture, and that's what global citizenship really is about. So I mean, again, I come back to talking to the future leaders, is that this is something that we need to do, but we need to do it with integrity and with conviction, not just as a feel good at the end of the day.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, I think when you just do it from a feel good perspective, there's something behind that. I talked to a business owner a couple of years ago who built up a huge corporation. He'd worked so hard. He said, I want this. I want this. I want to build success, because we have this idea that success means a lot of money in the bank. Well, he had accomplished that. He got to a couple $1 million. He had a bunch of employees. He bought this big house. And the day he moved in, that evening, he had no one there with himself. He had no family, no one. And he cried because he said he was empty. Because, yeah, he had accomplished this idea of success, but it was empty. So if you come at this from, I just want to do this to feel good or get stuff, at the end of the day, you're going to be empty.
Yeah, listen, I must tell you, I do, I drive my business with passion and purpose. And I mean, I'm changing women's lives on a second basis. Hundreds of thousands of women around the world, now can earn an income because they're not on fires. We feed over 10 million people a day. I mean, this is seriously feel good stuff. But I can tell you, I have those bloody lonely moments too, when I get back after hours and hours on the road, after intercontinental flights weekly, and I get into bed and I just sob, and I'm exhausted. And so just because it's a purpose-driven company doesn't mean that you don't have your dark times too. So I think it's also balance. And I think that's a challenge of all business owners. So I just want to flag here that just because you are a business with purpose, and you are changing people's lives, and you're saving children from death, and you're working in refugee camps and having so much joy and seeing so much joy and bringing so much joy, and are a catalyst for change across communities, it doesn't mean it is easy every day. I mean, I've had severe sobbing moments. I mean, not long ago, I was lying on the floor at my sister's house saying, I just can't go on. And she stared at me, and she sort of pushed me with her foot and said, get up and get on with it. Do you think Steve Jobs behaved like this? And I was like, well, he probably was worse. But the point is that you do have your bad moments. And I think that's one piece of advice I can really give to people is, don't neglect your friends. Your friends are the most important people on this journey with you, because, you can go months where you don't return their calls and whatever. But I tell you what, in those dark days, you need your friends, because you've probably by now lost your husband or your wife and everything else because you never get home. So, you've got to be careful. You've got to be careful about keeping close people around you, even if you're driving massive businesses to create change. And, to have a global business like mine does require an enormous amount of energy and time. We've all just read the papers and seen it with Elon Musk this week, and I think it's really brave of him to have spoken out and said, I'm tired. I've worked too hard. And Ariane has been the first to jump in and say, hey, Elon, we've all been there. I wrote to Ariana and said, Ariana, I need help. I don't know what to do. I'm about to have your full on the table in the doctor's room moment. And, she said, get into bed and sleep for 3 days. So, we have to be open and honest about these things. And I think the days of just sweeping it under the carpet. And that's why I love the new consciousness. I love that meditation is becoming center stage. I love the fact that, an afternoon nap is encouraged. Not that I ever have time for one, but you know what I'm saying is
Yeah,
these
absolutely.
things are hugely important in the business world. And it's not about just being tough all the time and just pushing through it. That doesn't work.
No,
We're
it
not
doesn't.
machines.
No, we're human beings. And if we want to serve and continue to serve, we have to take care of ourselves first. This has been such a fascinating talk. We could go on for hours, but I don't want us to leave without people finding out where they can find out more about Wonderbag and you. Let them know that.
So they can find out about Wonderbag on mywonderbag.com. We've also got a shop there, so you can shop online. We also sell on Amazon. And also wonderbag.org is our 501c where you can donate to our Wonder Feasts and subsidized bags around the world. And you can follow my stories through wonderbag.org or follow me on Facebook and Twitter. My hashtag, Twitter and Instagram. My hashtag is at Sarah Collins NB for Nelly Bravo. And thank you so much, Christina. This has been fabulous.
It certainly has. And thank you so much, Sarah, for coming to share your great wisdom today on Savvy Business Radio.
Savvy Business Radio broadcasts worldwide via a large podcast network, celebrating business owners, entrepreneurs, influencers, and successful individuals. Find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest. Call 732-474-7375 or email Christina at savvybusinessradio.com.